There we go. There we go. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Facebook a little bit slow and tardy in getting going, but we are. Wonderful. Wonderful. Um, we're going to continue. We're going to continue with understanding what's really going on. And this is a big deal. Just to get into the deeperness of worry and anxiety, looking at the factors that affect it. And I want to make something really clear to clarify a big deal involved with understanding. To understand understanding and its effect. We tend to look for solution and resolution and dealing with a problem or an issue. We want some instruction or some tip to say, okay, do this. Right? We typically think that resolution comes from doing something. That isn't always so. Yes, obviously in physical, practical things, that's so. But when it comes to emotional and psychological things, yes, that certainly can be so. But sometimes the doing is understanding. And that's not always so easy to grasp, that understanding can be a doing also. Yeah, does that make sense, what I'm saying? Just in case, anybody, if it makes sense, you're hearing this, put it in comments, right? It's a big deal to understand that understanding is also a doing, and it's an important doing. And we can get resolution, ease, release, freedom, movement, moving on to the next thing, simply because we understand. Awareness can be self-curative in this way. If you get it, if you understand why you are worrying, and you understand that the why doesn't make sense, well, how do you not stop worrying? See what I'm saying? If you understand exactly why you do something and that doesn't make sense, that understanding said, well, that doesn't make sense, there's no good reason for me to do this, then how do you continue doing something that makes no sense? You can't, right? We're not built that way. We can't do things deliberately that don't make sense. We can do things that don't make sense, but we believe it makes sense, so we do them. But that's the magic of understanding and being aware, and particularly adding discernment to that, which discernment is a layered awareness. You're aware of all the layers involved. And this is a profound thing. This is a very big deal, yes? Because now you don't just have that shallow surface awareness, which is how we get trapped in doing things that don't make sense, right? Because we only see the surface, and we believe it's going to. We don't look a little deeper, and we don't actually examine that belief. We don't get into the consequences of it and the effects, and so we just get stuck in this surfaceness of, oh well, I'm supposed to be doing this, right? I should be doing this, or well, you believe it's working when it's not working, right? So when we apply a little bit more in detail, especially with that discernment, then we leverage our awareness and we take it further, we go in depth, and we get to understanding. And understanding leads to some kind of doing, which typically the understanding simply leads to change. Oh, I see this makes no sense. Okay, well, duh, I change. That's it. End of story, just like that. Boom. It's no big deal, no rigmarole to it, no fancy stuff involved. Sometimes understanding, just simply you get to that aha, duh moment, and you say, oh, well, I can't be doing that anymore. That makes no sense. And you change. Simple as that, right? It doesn't have to be big fanfare and rigmarole and huff and puff with change. It can come very quickly and with no fuss and no big deal, right? We have to be prepared for that. And we have to sort of set ourselves. And we have to unhook from this idea that change is this huge big deal and fuss and bother and rigmarole and all sorts of stuff. No, it doesn't have to be. Because when you believe that there have to be bells and whistles and fireworks and everything will change, then you kind of get stuck a little bit in not being able to change when things are simple, right? I mean, I've seen profound life changes come about very simply, very quickly, very easily, just on, oh, I see, okay. And that was it, a change. moved on. Okay, next. Right? I said, life change, complete and utter life change in a moment. It happens, right? And can happen frequently too. But we have to be honest for this to happen. And we have to be real, and we have to be sober, and we have to acknowledge when something is in this profound way is a truth. Yes. And acknowledge, especially when, like, not make too big a deal of the fact that, well, I've been an nincompoop, and I've been acting like an idiot, doing stuff that makes no sense. Yeah. If you can't acknowledge that, then you're not going to change. Right. So it's very important. So that's why self-honesty and honesty is the first task of doing that I require when people do courses and projects with me, right? I mean, yes, there's takeaways, repeatbacks, all of that. And those are for emphasis reasons to train your brain, right? And to get out of this idea that memory learning is actual learning. No, it's not, right? It's two different things, right? You can put stuff on your hard drive. That doesn't mean you've learned it. You've just acquired and stored some data and information on your hard drive. And doesn't mean you've actually changed your programming. And furthermore, you may also change a program or update the program, but doesn't mean your operating system's been updated, right? So this is what we're after when it comes to real and lasting change. We want to update our operating system, change the operating system, not just add information to the hard drive or change a few programs, right? It's very important to really deal with the bigger thing. Because as you know, in your computer, you may update your latest word processor or whatever. Does that make your computer work better? No, not necessarily. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it may even work worse, because if your operating system is behind and hasn't been updated, it can't handle the new, more sophisticated updates in the program itself. Yes. So this is very important to update the operating system as well. So in other words, what I'm saying is, if you want to get rid of your anxiety and worry, well, you may need to update your operating system in terms of your self-honesty. If you don't want to be self-honest and acknowledge that you've been behaving like a nincompoop, well, you're not going to change. You're going to cling to that behavior out of this deep fear of acknowledging that you were foolish, right? If you can't do that, you can't be self-honest, well, you're going to get stuck, right? So you have to do both. And you may update your worry program and say, well, I'm not worrying anymore, but I'm not self-honest either. So time dealing, yes. So very important to have that underlying operating system, which is your character, not your personality, your character. It's a big point to understand the difference between character and personality, but that's for another day, another topic. So anybody who is, do me a favor and just leave me a comment there and say, hi, hello, Sol. So you're looking uglier than usual today. What the hell's going on with that hairstyle? So I don't know. Whatever you want to say, make a comment, please. I like to see who's paying attention or who's not, and just like to say hello to people. Maybe early, maybe nothing going on. I don't know, but I am keen. It's just I give it a little space there to see if anybody's here. Before I get going on where we left off last week. Now, it doesn't matter, again, if there's live, because I know many people watch this on the recordings. They can't always make it to the lives. Sure did say she's coming. Actually, that reminds me. Sure, let me contact you and say hello there, because you may not realize that we're a little earlier. Right. Just in case, because I know Sher said she did want to come. So yeah. All right, there you go. Okay, all good. Sometimes people can come, sometimes they can't. Yeah. All right. All right, I'll get going in a moment. I just want to let them know because I am starting an hour earlier. And so they may not have seen that. That's a little earlier. And that also may be why less are seeing this. Yeah. So, all right. No worries. All good. All good. Okay. So let's continue where we were last time. Okay, I'll do screen share in a moment here and pick up from this understanding what's really going on, really getting into the deeper details of what underlies the psychology of anxiety and worry. Right, so we've got a nice little quote here that sets the mood and gives us some insight. Worry is mostly an aggravated form of impatience or the inability to wait without stress. That's very cool quote. For me, this is how I defined patience from listening to my mother on the phone with her friend, as I've mentioned in previous recordings, right? My mother and her friend who would, and in those days, you didn't call every day or multiple times a day. You know, phone calls were kind of a luxury. Well, they were perceived as expensive. I don't know how expensive they really were, but they were certainly perceived as expensive. And people just weren't in the habit. So it was a once a week kind of a thing. They got together, had this big long chat, and anyway, it was a big gossip session essentially. But most of it revolved around anxiety and worry. And they would do the same thing over and over every week. And so I really, analyzed this as a teenager. Okay, that's what I did. Just long story, but anyway. So I, thought about this a lot, and I saw how much of it was simply because they were impatient and they couldn't wait for things to simply turn out and how they were going to turn out. And because they couldn't wait without stress, they couldn't just accept things are going to happen and let's see. This is what caused their worry. Right? So they went for the worst case scenario, never followed up, never checked. But anyway, one of the reasons for it was this inability to wait without stress, right? Sheer impatience, just, weak character, indulgence, not paying attention. So it's amazing. It's amazing, right? Just crappiness, really. Let's look at this point here. Whole person psychology. I don't remember what this is about in detail, but we'll see in a moment. So I like when there's a bit of surprise involved. It's been a while since I did this, so I'm not sure. But we do want to have whole person psychology. Just from the title alone, we can draw something. And I like doing this. I like to write titles which are like a fractal, which if you think about it, what does it mean by a whole person psychology? Well, it's opposed to, a fragmented person or not whole, right? As in, a broken, right? But whole as in complete. Okay. You want your psychology to be connecting to all of you, in other words, right? Not just to a part of you. So this is important. It's like if you were to update your operating system. If your operating system only works for some of the things, and like it works for your printer, but it doesn't really work for your monitor, well, you can have a problem, right? So you want, in the same way, you want a whole person psychology, you want a whole computer operating system. Psychology, operating system, say it's the same thing, right? So see, we want to have this working for all parts of us, right? The more and more we loop around inside the limited walls and restrictions of anxiety and worry, the more and more we disconnect ourselves from whole person psychology. Now this whole person psychology starts to make sense. Again, using this computer analogy, if we think of anxiety and worry as a program that you start, you go to your start menu and you click on, you see all the programs there. And I say, okay, I've got this and that, all my different programs, my spreadsheet, my word processor, my mouse program, okay, maintenance, my my monitor, or my video program, etc., etc. Right? I say, oh, well, what's this down the bottom here under worry, under W, worry? Oh, my worry program. Okay, all right. Well, I guess I need to start that. But oh, it's already running. Oh, it runs all the time. Oh, it's on permanently. Oh, okay, crap. All right. Well, that's not so good. Right. But my point is that, when you were to look at worry and anxiety as a program that you would run on your computer, okay, maybe you say, well, it's kind of like an antivirus, isn't it? Yeah, except an antivirus doesn't make you feel terrible. Yeah. It's always there. It's always looking out for problems, which is what your worry and anxiety problem is purporting to do. It's supposed to do this, but really it just makes you feel terrible. So it becomes the problem that it's trying to prevent. Yes, that's not good. So we want to make sure that we have our anxiety and worry, if it is looking out for negative things, like an antivirus program, scans things continuously, that it does so in a way that doesn't affect the computer. Again, most of your viruses and spyware and malware, when they do infect your computer, they slow it down tremendously. They don't make the computer work properly. And so you don't want them. But if you had an antivirus program that did the same thing, right? If your antivirus program was severely slowing down your computer and making it unpleasant to use, well, that would be a bit pointless, right? The thing that's trying to prevent something is actually doing that. Doesn't make any sense, right? So we can't have our antivirus program behave and give us the same effects and results as a virus itself. Yeah. Well, that's what anxiety and worry is. It's an antivirus program or an anti-stress or anti-problem program, but it's running in a very poor way. It's a very inefficient way of dealing with potential problems, right? And we can switch it instead of anxiety and worry, which has got negativity and stress and fear involved, uncertainty, doubt, all of this unpleasant stuff. We can switch that to being cautious, being concerned, being prepared, being aware. Say, okay, and making it more of an assessment to say, what are the odds? Okay, can I deal with it? Yes. If I can deal with it, I deal with it. If I can't, I say, well, I can't deal with it. It's too bad. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Right? So at some point, you have to be a little bit fatalistic. Like, for instance, worrying about a meteor falling on your head, my famous example. Yeah. If the meteor is going to fall on your head, it's going to fall on your head. What are you going to do about it? Yeah, not much, right? I mean, if you want to go live deep underground, okay, but then you can worry about cave-ins. There's always something to worry about. At some point, we have to be a little bit fatalistic and say, if stuff's going to happen, it's going to happen. Too bad. Yeah. Am I going to spend my life worrying about it and living miserably? Or can I live my life happily and joyfully? And if it happens, it happens. At least in the meantime, I've lived happily, right? So there's no point in living negatively because something might happen. Because if it doesn't happen, you've wasted all that time. If it does happen, you've wasted all that time. Either way, it makes no difference, right? Yeah. There's a very famous quote, which actually I might add into this somewhere. If you worry, you die. If you don't worry, you still die. So why worry? Or at least about death anyway, right? So being on some things, worry is pointless. Yeah. And also you have, at least in our world we live in now, you're seeing posts about manifesting all the time. All right. A lot of it people don't quite understand, but never mind. At least there is still this understanding that in some way our attention and our awareness is connected to reality. So we're going to be worrying about stuff. Worry about bringing it into your life via materializing and manifesting, but take that right out of it. Just simply when you start worrying about stuff, the brain notices things that you pay attention to. And so you notice more things that are worrisome. I'm not saying be oblivious, no, but I'm saying that you can notice threats and stresses and dangers without being discombobulated by it, without being fearful about it, right? It's like, okay, you're walking through the jungle and, or in the bush veld or whatever, right? And you see, oh, I see there's a tribe of lions out there way on the edge there. Okay, I see you lions. I'll move around with you, or a herd of buffalo, which again, you don't want to go mess with a herd of buffalo. You know, you might spook them and they might stampede and run you over, or they just get a bit ornery and knock, whatever, right? I'm just saying. So you don't want to be messing with things unnecessarily. You steer clear of them. I see you, I avoid you, right? In the same way as, you know, I see a, you know, dangerous cliff edge that looks a bit crumbly and unsafe. Well, I'm not going to go walk on it, right? So just because you see danger doesn't mean you have to be afraid and stressed. Yeah, I see it. I take action to avoid it, right? And I'm prepared. So this idea that we have to be stressed and unhappy and miserable because of potential risk or danger, this is a flawed idea, right? So we want to be sure that we don't get disconnected from our whole person psychology. We want to keep that big picture here, right? So let me read this paragraph again so that I can continue on the second one. The more and more we loop around inside the limited walls of restrictions of anxiety and worry, the more and more we disconnect ourselves from whole person psychology. In other words, like I was saying with the computer program, if I only run the worry program and it dominates my screen, you know, it's full screen. Like you see, I've got two screens. You're seeing the Facebook underneath here. So I can watch. There's Norma. Norma is here. Yes, very good, Norma. Which means, Norma, if you are here, that means you're not all there, correct? I'm here too, Mina, which Norma, which means that I'm not all there either, right? Which I find very amusing with, you know, being here in the now. But anyway, I'm glad you're here, Norma. All right, so I'm saying that if we get involved on a computer, right? Like see, I've got these different windows up here, right? It's not full screen, in other words. But if I do make my window full screen, well, I'm trying to get there. If I can, there we go. If I make my window full screen, all right. So now I've got this is the whole window for everything, and this is all I'm seeing. If this is my anxiety and worry program, that's all I'm going to be immersed in and nothing else. And that's very limiting. And so this disconnects us from whole person psychology, right? I mean, the equivalent really would be that you don't even see your taskbar at the bottom here. I don't know if the screen share shows the taskbar, but you don't even see all of this. You know, you don't have a start menu button. You don't have, you know, your system tray over here and, you know, all your little extra thingies that are going on here and stuff you can do. So while I'm about it, so this is the equivalent. We can't get too immersed in the bubble of anxiety and worry because we lose connection to whole person psychology, and that would be the equivalent on your computer of losing connection to your taskbar on your start menu, to the whole computer, in other words, right? I mean, that's just no good at all. So to carry on here, we simply don't have openings and connections to involve ourselves with psychologies which extend us, keep us open, connected, growing and learning, because, well, we're stuck in reinforcing the loops of stress via our preoccupation with anxiety and worry. We could so much rather be spending all that energy we use to maintain our bubble on building a whole person psychology. Once we look at matters from this perspective, a shift starts to happen. Yes, and this is very cool. To use our computer analogy again, why run one program on your computer only? Yeah, I mean, if you see my computer here, you see I've got a whole bunch of windows open. I got Zoom, you know, I got all my files here that I constantly work on. I got a lot going on. I don't just limit myself to one thing. Okay, some people will say, yeah, but you can get too fragmented. Fine, you don't have to have a dozen like I have or 2 dozen different things going on at one time. I mean, I just leave them open because there's stuff like my email or whatever. It's stuff that I see regularly, you know, and I monitor. So instead of opening it and then checking, it reminds me every now and then, oh, go and see if there's something going on there, right? So it's helpful, like a multitasking thing. But the point I'm making is that if you only have one window and one program running, and that's anxiety and worry, oh my goodness, isn't this going to severely restrict and limit your life? There's so much more. You can't be a whole person if you only have anxiety and worry. And because of emphasis and the way emphasis rewires the brain, of course, the more you get immersed in it, the more you train your brain to only do that. And you become very limited, right? You get to be a one-trick pony. And if that one trick is anxiety and worry, well, that's not good. So, Yeah. All right. Antivirus. That's, see, there's my worry program popping up, telling me worry, worry, worry. Where is it? Ramsey's here too. Very good. Ramsey's out of jail. So very good. Yes. I am well, Ramsey. I am well. Yes, indeed. Hello, Norma. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Glad you guys are here. Glad you guys are here. So whole person psychology is a very, very big deal, not only for dealing with anxiety and worry, but it can deal with all sorts of other things too, right? Addiction is a good example. Obsession, another good example. Well, addiction, obsession, kind of very similar, right? Now, those can be useful, but if you get too focused on your goal and you lose sight of the bigger picture, then you also start to kind of lose that connectivity and you become less effective, as it were. Or you can become very miserable because you're overly focused on one thing, right? So this is why we have breaks, we have vacations, we work and then we play. It's about balance, right? Because of the way the brain is, when you over specialize, the brain only sees one thing, and that makes us very limited, and it disconnects us. And in that disconnection, that's when we start losing out. And this is not healthy, because the more you are on a single narrow path, the more dangerous things are, because again, you disconnected from the whole. You're not seeing what's going on around you. You can't be appropriate. You can't adapt, right? And if you can't adapt, you can't evolve, and so on. So this is very, very, very important to be aware of whole person psychology. Yeah, you want to take care of your computer, your operating system, and your individual programs. You can't just focus on one program and one program only and keep updating that program. It's going to get out of tune with the operating system. Is going to become so updated, and your old operating system that never got updated, it won't be able to run this new, fancy, sophisticated, super wonderful program. Can't do it because the operating system is in the past, right? So you need to have whole person psychology. You need to keep updating your operating system. Yeah. I mean, if anybody's on WordPress, you'll know this, right? If you have, you get, your plugin gets updated, but the WordPress itself hasn't updated yet, your plugin stops working sometimes because the operating system, in that case, WordPress, hasn't caught up. They haven't updated to deal with a new update in the program. It doesn't work. So very important to be updated in your wholeness, right? Very big deal. All right, let's look at misbeliefs and misassociations. I cannot emphasize simply from this title how much trouble misbeliefs and misassociations cause. If you're doing Way-of-Impeccability, I'd say add those two to your dictionary of power. They are incredibly powerful conceptions to really understand them. Misbeliefs cause incredible problems. So do misassociations, right? Both of the, just take phobias. A phobia is very often a combination of a misbelief and a misassociation. A phobia can come purely from a misbelief, and it can come purely from a misassociation. But essentially, a misassociation is a kind of a misbelief, and a misbelief is a kind of a misassociation. They're just coming at the same thing from different angles, right? But very powerful conceptions to really understand, and how much they cause problems. So much, nay, most of anxiety and worry is based on misbelief and misassociation. We believe and think we should worry, and this is, after all, what good people do. We thus develop a misassociation with anxiety and worry and goodness. But we don't have to think and believe this way. We can think things through to the end and come up with different beliefs, different associations, and find alternate ways of being, and replace these unwanted habits of being. Very important. So I need to do some editing here while I'm about it. So I need to bring this to the foreground. See, bring to the front, and now that goes underneath. Yeah, and also I actually am surprised that I don't have it here as a habit on these complex compound concepts. I like to not only hyphenate them there, but to capitalize the individual words. Why? Because it's a mnemonic device. I'm telling my brain this is it's not only hyphenated because it's a singular concept, but also I am I need to go one back here. And the reason I capitalize to the end is to emphasize the importance of thinking things through to the end. This is critical. And a nice analysis of the, or example for this is like a scientific experiment, right? If anybody's ever done anything, you know, at school, university, whatever, where you had to do a scientific experiment, right? And especially if you're repeating one that's already been done before, to get the results that they got, you have to do it to the end. You can't do it 90% or 95% even, or even 99%. No, you have to do it 100%. Otherwise, it's pointless, right? So this is the same thing with thinking. We need to think things through to the end. Otherwise, it can all be wasted. You may get some value out of it. Yes, I'm not saying it's totally worthless, but you're not going to get the full value. And very often you can get misleading results, right? If you do an experiment 90% of the way, you don't finish it, you get a result. And that's a bogus result, as anybody knows. And it could be opposite to the end result. So you have to finish these things. It's very, very, very important. Now, it's very critical. So, and ways of being, it's also a very powerful concept. And so I don't know why I didn't capitalize these. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, we'll update. So habits of being, very powerful, right? We want to, this is a concept, habits of being. And when you realize that we have habits of being, and also that our way of being, if my way of being is worrying and being anxious, well, I got to change that. This is an unwanted habit of being. I can change that. I don't have to have it, right? It's a choice. It's something that is in my control to deal with. And that's important to deal with it, right? Very, very important. All right, let me put this back so I can watch the comments there and see. And of course, you know, anybody feel free to comment at any time. Perspective shifting for greater comprehension. Now, I'm mentioning these here, both misbeliefs and misassociations, habits, thinking things through to the end. This thinking things through to the end is one of the principal tools of Way of Impeccability. Okay, in Way of Impeccability, we go into detail on it, we figure out how to do that, right? And yes, Norma, we have to realize first. Yes, exactly. First, right? So it's not, you didn't say we have to realize, you said we have to realize first. The first makes all the difference in that statement there. Because a lot of people think, well, we have to realize. They don't add the first. And they think realization is all they need. No, it's not all you need. It's a first, because many get stuck on the realization. Oh, I realized what's going on. And I think they know now, they think they've changed. No, realizations can trick us, because I have a realization, I have a new awareness, and that information, if it's only a realization, if it's not accompanied with application, with action, with change, it's just data that goes to your hard drive and it fools you into thinking you've changed. Data on your hard drive does nothing to change your computer. Absolutely nothing, right? For instance, I need to update my operating system, right? I get a notice from Windows or Apple or whoever, hey, you got to update. I download the update program. I download it to my download file, right? Which is data on the hard drive. Okay. Now what? Has my computer been updated yet? No. I have got that information to update. It's sitting on my hard drive, but nothing has happened. Why? Because I haven't actually run the update program yet, right? So you got to click on it, open the file, run it, and okay, now you're updating it. It does all of its things, and your little lights blink, and you, I don't know, if you've got a happy computer, it bleeps and chirps, but all right, I don't know. They took that out a little bit. I missed that. In the old days, you would see the little lights flashing, and you could hear whirring and buzzing and stuff, and it really sounded like something's going on inside there. It was very cool. Today, it's like a little bit more chill. You don't really get this effect of the computer thinking and working. But when you download an update, you're just downloading it. And that's what the realization typically is just a download. You have to run that download. You have to activate it. You have to put it into application. It has to sort everything out and connect and update the things. It has to do. And this is what is essential. We have to have it doing. That's why Windows 10, it's already Windows 11, Norma. You have to update. You have to update. So that's why when Norma said we have to realize first, the first implies there's a second. In other words, it's just the start. Realization is not the end result, right? It's a very powerful sentence, very powerful sentence. But, and also it's an illustration what I'm doing here. I applied the discernment, capital D, discernment, to Norma's sentence, right? I broke it into its component parts and said, oh, I have to realize first. There's implications here. And I have said this many times. If you want to be, a lot of people say, oh, I wish I was clever. I wish I was more intelligent. I wish I was smarter. Very easy way to become smarter. Pay attention to implications. See, look at the sentence of Norma's. Have to realize first. By implication, there's a second. And by implication, that to say have to realize first. Norma's saying by implication, it's important you start with this. But she didn't say have to realize only. Yeah? Or just have to realize. So the first implies that there's a process. And of course, if you don't finish the process, you're not going to get full value by implication once again. So this sentence has got like a little philosophy involved in it, right? Okay, you realize, then you do the next thing, which of course is application, putting it into practice, actually doing that, making this effort to change your habits of being. And if you change your habits of being, you get to change your way of being, right? Habits are a big, big limitation, right, to doing this. So very profound comment, Norma, very profound comment. So yes, so yeah, be aware it's Windows 11 now is the more recent. At least I haven't heard of Windows 12 yet, but anyway. It's probably in development, of course, but yeah. But again, not all computers can run Windows 11. So on some computers, the latest system is Windows 10, right? So that just is the way it is. Just to be a little bit technical. All right, so I'm trying to make a point here. In the previous slide that we have, you know, thinking things through to the end is a profound conception here. And it's a tool. It's a profound tool. It's one of the core tools of Way of Impeccability. And on this slide, we are dealing with another core tool of Way of Impeccability, which is perspective shifting, right? And we want to use this for greater comprehension. It's an incredibly powerful thing to do. Do we absolutely have to see things from just one perspective only? Do we absolutely have to see things from just one perspective only? Is there just one, or even only a few ways of seeing matters? No, absolutely not. Things aren't simply black or white, as so many want to believe. That typically results in living in a gray world. Very sad, sad reality. What about all those glorious colors, for heaven's sake? For all you people who think, well, I'm a black and white thinker. What the hell are the colors? It fascinates me how people insist on this idea of black and white. And like I said, they typically end up in a gray world because very few things are actually either exactly black or exactly white. It's always some bit of merging. But again, you live in a gray world if you were black and white thinking and you miss out on all the colors. What a horrible way to live. Sorry, I don't want to live in a black and white world or in a gray world, because when you look at black and white pictures, it's shades of black and white, right? It's very seldom, you know, black and white like a chessboard, contrast, right? No, or checkerboard, yeah? No, that's very seldom that way in life. So when you look at black and white photographs, they really gray. Shades of gray. That's what a black and white photograph is for the most part. Shades of gray. Yeah. All right. Some people, it's nice for an exception, but I don't think you actually want to live in this. Like if you ask people, oh, I love black and white photography. Okay. Would you like to remove your color view and live in a black and white world? No, not really. Right. Yeah. So it's nice as an exception, but not all the time. What about all those glorious colors? We absolutely cannot forget there are color options. We just have to make that effort to find them and make the effort to perspective shift, as well as make the effort to break free from our default habits. If our default habit is seeing things in black and white, or at least trying to see it in black and white, it's not actually a realistic ability to see this. I mean, if you're insisting on looking at the real world in black and white, you're going to have to distort it in some way, like a camera does, right? It distorts it to get a black and white photograph. That's not what actually is up there, right? So why do you want to insist on doing this in your life, right? And when we don't see the full range of colors, we don't see the full picture. Yes. So this is very important. I mean, if you look at trees in black and white, how do you know if the trees are, the leaves are starting, the trees healthy or not? Sometimes you can't tell. You can't tell from black and white. If the color of the green is like that kind of sickly green, or it's starting to gray and fade and dry up or whatever. It's very hard to tell, So color is important. I mean, I'm just using a simple example here where color makes a real difference, but certainly when you look at forests and green and plant life and flowers, man, they add all sorts of magic to the world. Color is a big deal. But I'm making the point though that it's more information, and multiple perspectives gives you more information on what's going on, and it helps us to understand, gives us greater comprehension. A good example of this that I use regularly, and I'll go back to it, it's an old standby, is perspective shifting. If you think of it as trying to understand the floor plan of a house, and you've only got limited perspective on it through the windows. If you look through one window, it's very unlikely, unless it's a one-room house, that you're going to know the floor plan of a house. But let's say a typical house, 2-3 bedrooms, whatever, living room, kitchen, bathroom, all that, right? From one window, you're unlikely to see the floor plan. But from multiple windows, absolutely, you're going to get this idea. Furthermore, you don't have to look through every single window to get this understanding. At some point, you've got from this side, from that side, and you say, well, I can construct, I can infer, I can deduce, I can construct this floor plan from the information that I have. Our brains are very, very, very good at doing this. So my point is that we need to perspective shift to give that data from the different angles, and your brain can put it together. Now, you don't need all of them, but you certainly can't use one or two only. You need multiple. This is the key. You need multiple. So there's not necessarily a hard and fast number, how much, what percentage. Sometimes you may need to, occasionally, you may need to look through every single one. That's possible, right? But you keep going until such time as it clicks and it falls into place. And this is really profound. I've seen this happen many times. I remember on the school ground seeing this happen. You're standing around in a big circle and talking about whatever, and one kid says, I don't get it. I don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me. And then the other kids will be like, somebody will say, well, look at it this way. And then they will share the point, whatever was the thing that was being made, from a different perspective. And then the kid will, then another kid will say, yeah, all right, well, how about coming at it from this angle? And I've seen this happen where you can go through, 5, 6, even a dozen different kids will come up with a different perspective. What really was so profound for me is that the kids automatically kept going, and they just instinctively started sharing these different perspectives to help the kid who didn't understand, because the kid was really earnest. So they really made this effort to help them to understand. It's a really profound thing, really incredible. And then at some point the kid went, okay, I get it now. Now, it wasn't that 10th perspective or whatever, that last one that made the difference. It was the accumulation of all of them, and it all fell into place, right? It just clicked. They could put it all together. It's really a profound thing. It's a very profound thing. So perspective shifting for greater comprehension, really huge. So when we apply this to anxiety and worry, is anxiety and worry the only perspective? No. It's not. It's like looking at the inside of the house to understand what's going on from one window only. That anxiety and worry is one window. It's a negative window. That's assuming that it's going to be negative. One window. There's more to it than that, right? So look at the bigger component, bigger picture, multiple perspectives. Very, very, very important. Critical. All right. Physical components. The effects on our physical selves, on our bodies, cannot be overlooked or ignored. This is the effect of anxiety and worry, right? Anxiety and worry have deep, if subtle, effects on our health. Much psychological problem has a physiological cause, and likewise, much of the physical is caused by the psychological. Right? These two work in tandem, they work together. A self-reinforcing loop, as it were. We tend to not pay attention to the physical well-being consequences of anxiety and worry, but we certainly need to do so if we are to fully understand the full ramifications of our behavior. And this is really huge. I think a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to the physical effects of anxiety and worry. And they do when it starts to get chronic. Like, man, I've got these chronic headaches. Well, okay, you're sitting there all tense and stressed and worried. Well, of course, you're overstressing your poor head, your poor brain. Those muscles have become cramped already. Of course, you got a headache because you're worrying and you're too anxious. Like, duh, right? Poor eyesight, same thing. Sometimes can be caused by worry. You kind of squinting at stuff because you're worried. It's like a worried face, no? It messes up your eyes. You're not looking nice and clearly with your eyes. Yeah, try it for yourself now. Put on a worry face where you like squinting with your eyes like this. And you see, like for me, when I do that, my screen goes a bit out of focus. So it makes it harder for me to absorb the information from that. And if that's my default way I'm holding my face, I'm forcing my eyes to be inefficient. Yeah, not good. You don't actually have bad eyesight. You're just forcing them to be bad by pulling your face in that way with anxiety and worry. Not good, not good. Yeah. So it's very important to really understand what's going on. And of course, this is a consequential thing and it can start looping on it. Now, of course, if you continually have headaches, it makes you more miserable. And now you're worried about being miserable. It just starts looping and goes on and on, right? So we want to really understand this so that we don't get caught up in these loops and spirals that don't go nowhere. All right, is a quote from Aspirant Nora. We have to consider when we worry, we are likely actually contributing to the very thing we wish to avoid. We have to be aware worry can be self-fulfilling. We especially have to understand worry is not being cautious or sensible, but the very opposite. It's typically merely a palliative for being impeccable. This is the power of impeccability. If we've done everything we can possibly do, including staying alert and aware, what else is there to do but enjoy? We have to realize that worry only serves to narrow our focus and awareness, preventing us from seeing and connecting to those very gifts of resolution which inevitably come our way. Just what exactly does worry actually achieve? Like, seriously, just what exactly? I really want to know. What does it help? Why do it? What's the point? How does it make sense? How is it justifiable? Really, is there any good reason to worry? Aspirant Nora. Very profound quote, very cool quote from Aspirant Nora. Aspirant Nora is very straightforward, very action orientated. No BS with Aspirant Nora. She wants to know. Be real, be real. Aspirant Nora, very real, very real. Very cool quote. Very, very, very cool quote. Right. And when we think of this, perspective shift on it, is wow. Yeah, actually, Nora's got a good point. She asked really good questions. What do I actually get out of it? Other than, if we go back a few slides, the misbelief that I get value from it, the misassociation with anxiety and worry to, like, for instance, it's associated with goodness. I should do this. Yeah, so it's a misassociation, misbelief. Very profound. Looking at our beliefs to examine them and see, is it an actual valid belief? Is it justifiable? Does it have substance? Or is it a misbelief that I believe is valid? Right? If I believe something's valid that's not that isn't valid, that's a misbelief, correct? Right? I mean, if I look out the window and I say, oh, the sun is shining, it must be warm. Well, I go outside and it's a nice, crisp, clear winter's day and it's freaking freezing outside, even though the sun is shining. Well, it was a misbelief, not true, right? So you have to be careful. You have to pay attention. You have to be thorough, be disciplined, right? And misassociations, likewise, they cause lots of problems. Lots of things get into play because of misassociate, automatic linking, in other words. Like if you have a file, and you know your file is okay on favorite foods, but it's labeled favorite farts. Well, that's a very profound misassociation, correct? Not the same thing. So we know how labeling on your computer, just like file names, how they make a very different thing. So I search for favorite foods and I don't find, where's my file? I know I made a file of my favorite foods. Where are all these recipes that I say? Oh, okay, I can't find it because it's mislabeled. Misassociation. See, it gets us disconnected from things in a very profound way. So it's a very big deal, very big deal. So we need to pay attention to see if things are appropriately associated. Otherwise, you get up, with that inappropriate association. Whenever you call this up, you get something else. Yeah. So again, you may have a file of farts, and you think foods, and you get farts. No, that's no good. That doesn't help my appetite very much. See, so labeling, very important, very, very important. All right, so we come to tasks and exercises. Now, of course, this is geared for if you are actually doing this, and I'm going through the program in a non-ideal way. The way to do this is, ideally, you would be doing a repeat back and a takeaway on these slides. In other words, your repeat back is that you'd come on Zoom and say, hey, here's my repeat back on this quote from Aspirant Nora. So you're going to say the same thing in your own words. Why is this so critical? It retrains your brain, right? It's emphasis, emphasis, emphasis. You get to know it. It's a doing. It's not just a believing that you know through just, oh, I read it. Now I know it. No, sorry, you don't. You think you know it because at the time of reading it all made sense. Just because it made sense at the time, it doesn't mean it's changed you. It's that have to realize first. You can read it and realize, oh, wow, this is really awesome. But if there's no second to that, it just gets dumped onto your hard drive as information. Oh, I saw it. It made sense to me. Good. Did I change? No. Right? Realization is not automatic change. It can sometimes lead to change, but it's not automatic. Right? You have to sometimes make an effort to change. Why? Because we've got habits that keep us in place. Habits keep us where we are at. Right? Habits are unawareness programs, and they basically repeat what we are. If you don't change the habits, you're not going to change. So we are defined by our habits to a large extent. And what we aim for, ideally, is to have capital H habits, which are deliberate habits. Yes, I do the same thing every day, but I'm doing it consciously and deliberately. Not in a little H habit, which is an unaware habit. It just repeats of its own self. And I might not even realize that I'm doing it because, well, it's a little H habit, which is an unaware habit. Very profound point. So then we come, of course, and your takeaway would be to say, what do I take away from this? In other words, what do I really need to do? Oh, well, I really need to actually go and examine my anxieties and worries and really to see if there is any good reason for it. Okay, well, let me do that. Let me make a list of the things that I worry about and see if there's any value to this. Right? For instance, right? That would be a takeaway. Or I'm reading this and I'm thinking, wow, this is something that I really want to share with, like my mother. It's like, wow, hey, you know what, you need to read this because this really applies to you. See, so it could be and I'm thinking about my mother. It's a come up takeaway, different kinds of takeaways. But typically a takeaway is what I want to hold on to, that I need to maintain an awareness of, that I need to implement, that I need to keep repeating until I've changed, right? This is typically the takeaway, yeah? What do I take with me and hold with me so that I can get the resulting change? And then we get to tasks and exercises, which are special implementations. So let's see. Let's get into this and see. So we prove it was right to worry. How do you mean, Norma? I'm not sure. Can you elaborate a little bit? Well, you can try and prove it was right to worry. Yeah, but you can use the same energy that you put into worry into being cautious and being prepared and resolving the issue, figuring it out, learning, growing. There's lots of things you can do with that same energy. Worry is a negatively experienced energy, right? Whereas caution, well, that now, okay, I'm being cautious, I'm being alert. I'm saying, I'm seeing it. There's no negativity in caution. I'm just saying, okay, it's an assessment. Doesn't affect me in a negative way necessarily. What about preparation? Oh, preparation is great. It makes me feel good. If I look outside the window and I say, wow, man, or I see on the weather report, there's a hurricane coming or a big storm coming my way. Oh, terrible. And I start worrying and anxious. What difference does that make to how I deal with the big storm? Have I shuttered up my windows? Have I boarded them up so that the glass doesn't blow in? Have I put sandbags around the doors, etc., etc.? No, I've done nothing. All I've just has experienced negativity because the storm is coming. With the caution, I say, well, what can I do? My caution says there is something I can do about this. Okay, I can board up my windows, put the sandbags down, get emergency food supplies, get fresh water, stock up on this in case, the water gets disrupted, buy candles, get solar lanterns, whatever, right? In case there's no electricity, whatever. There are lots of things we can do, right? But anxiety and worry, all it makes you do is feel miserable about something that's inevitable. Now, that storm might not hit you, it might veer off and turn away, and it doesn't hit you, and now you've had all this horrible feeling for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. Yeah. So see, that's typically what the thing is. Anxiety and worry is about something that might happen, not will happen. If you knew for sure, well, some people sit and worry and take no action, right? Like with the storms. Literally, the storm's coming, and they panic and stress and worry, and they don't take any action. And then when the storm hits, they get flooded and they're out of food and they don't have fresh water and etc. It's like amazing to me. It's like, wow, all that energy spent on pointless behavior, but you believe it has a point. Yeah? So when you say it, what do you mean, Norma? Because there's a little bit of time lag. So when you say the it, what is the it that creates itself? I'm keen to hear. So this is a very big deal to actually get into this habit of doing stuff, which is tasks and exercises. What is the doing involved? Zoom out from your immediate situation and share what all could be in the future from a positive perspective. If you in this constant loop of anxiety and worry, everything's always going to be terrible. Well, can you zoom out a little bit and look and imagine what might come, what could be in the future from a positive perspective? Well, could it be that the storm could go, make a detour, veer off? And that happens all the times with storms or hurricanes or whatever, right? They don't always stay on the course that they're on, right? It doesn't matter, Norma. We can go back. I like going back. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it just in the comment, just know that there's a 30-second delay because of Facebook and coming over the internet and stuff. So then just say it like say what it is that you were referring to a little bit. It's helpful. Yeah, I mean, I do want to respond, Norma. Your comments are very helpful, but I'm not sure because I made a lot of points. So I'm not sure what you meant. But just looking at things from a positive, like with the storm coming, well, I could say, well, the storm could miss me. And so what could come is nice, wonderful weather and sunshine. Or we could just get the edge of the storm and it's just a regular rain thing. And I love rain and it's not stressful. Well, I love storms too. Well, that's me. I don't find storms stressful. I find them very exciting, very energizing. Same with earthquakes. If you actually feel the energy from an earthquake and you remove the anxiety and worry, it's very innovating. It's astonishingly so. Yes, I don't care for when the earthquakes are severe and they cause damage, but there's two separate issues. The positive energy I get from the earthquake itself is not the same thing as saying, well, it caused destruction and unhappiness and the two separate issues, right? I can be innovated and energized by the energy from the earthquake and appreciate that people had negative consequence from this, right? So when we start looking at things from a positive perspective, it's amazing how much more there is to life, right? So another task and exercise, the second one here, is the belief that being anxious and worrying is the way to solve your problems a valid belief or a misbelief? If you think anxiety and worry are valid, they're valid beliefs, then you believe this really does solve your problems, justify it. Yeah. Very good exercise. Very good exercise. When you pay attention to how much anxiety and worry have actually served you, how much have they actually been valuable and useful? Very good question to ask. How much have they actually helped? Yeah. Let's see what's underneath this. Oh, here's a quote here from Sue Unedited. Anxiety and worry are nothing but energy vampires. Yes, absolutely, Sue. Very profound quote. Very profound quote. Very cool quote. Yes, anxiety and worry are nothing but energy vampires. Yeah, they don't really help us very much at all. Wow, what a nice slide, though. Yeah, like that. Like this is sort of the opposite. It's like energy coming from the universe, the very opposite. We pay attention, there's lots of energy, lots of positive energy around, lots of moreness around. Why only limit it to the negative thing? So, a lot of tasks and exercises here. Okay. So this is, I'm going to go because I want to end a little bit earlier. But anybody who wants to go through this, I mean, to read these tasks and exercises, yes, they're quite valuable, but really they're only valuable if you're actually going to do them. Otherwise, it's a nice idea and it opens the mind up a little bit. But when you actually do it, this is when you get the value. Right? And it's very important to understand. Without doing, you believe you get value and you get a little bit, but it doesn't last very long, very temporary. Right? Doesn't stick. So before we go, Ramzi, Norma, any comments, any questions? Just while I'm waiting for you guys to type there, in case there is something. There's a lot of this. I think there's like 4 slides of tasks and exercises here. This is a very, 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 very key. Very key point in this session, this module. That's why there's so many tasks and exercises here. It's kind of a summation. And if you actually go through these tasks and exercises, and I'll pause a little bit here so that if you're on the video, you can just hit pause and do them yourself, right? Actually doing these will change you. Now, note well, I'm saying actually doing them, not just doing them, actually. So do them for real, do them thoroughly, do them impeccability, do them with the fullness of your being. Don't skimp on them, because in that emphasis, you are telling your brain, this stuff is important. I want to change this behavior. It matters, right? I'm looking to change. I'm doing this because I really, really want to change. You're emphasizing your desire to unhook from anxiety and worry, your desire to change your behavior by doing these tasks and exercises really seriously, right? And we get to the finishing quote here. When we know our intent is impeccable, what's to worry? Intent, not intention. Intention is just wishes and hopes and maybe. Intent is a doing. It's a doing, it's a commitment. I am committed to doing something. If that doing is impeccable, what's to worry? Yeah? It's a very profound quote. Now, this is connected to way of impeccability, as all my things are. Way of impeccability is the core. It's always the core, right? And so this is a very, very profound, deep quote. There's a lot to this. But when you really understand this, it's very life-changing, very profound thing. So, end module 4. Celebrate what's different in you now. There's a little closing parting there. Celebrate what's different in you now. Yeah? And the effect on our beliefs. Exactly. We haven't mentioned sharing, not recommended. Absolutely. Share. Sharing is crucial. Sharing is crucial. Sharing is a power conception. When we share, we start to collaborate. We get moreness, right? We bring in more than we can do on our own. Sharing is a profound collaboration. And to me, I define collaboration as 1 + 1 = more. Not 2, but more, right? Ramsey says you should always control the flow of thoughts in your mind at all times and keep thinking to its lowest. I'm not sure what thinking to its lowest means. I mean, to a minimum. I'm not always sure about this either, Ramsey, because thinking things through to the end is thinking to the maximum, you could say, right? It's finishing it, right? not leave them auto running. Okay, if you mean it in the concept of this, in other words, if I paraphrase you and take what you're saying there, if I add not leave them to auto running, yes, yes. In other words, to be deliberate with our thinking, not just to have thinking running away with itself. So in other words, it's like on your computer. Don't just have 101 programs open just because. No, open programs that are there because you want them there deliberately, right? If programs were just opening randomly on your computer, which is by implication from what Ramsey's saying, you're going to have a mess on your computer, right? This is going to be terrible. You're going to have your computer not going to really work very well. You need to have your programs open deliberately, right? If they open because you don't want them to be, no good. So this is very important, right? It's about using energy. This is what impeccability is. Core definition of impeccability. There's many different definitions of impeccability, but the core one is best use of energy. What impeccability is, best use of energy, right? Very, very key. So the effect on our beliefs is very, very important. And yes, sharing, Norma, I cannot emphasize how important sharing is, because sharing is automatically perspective shifting, is it not, Norma? If I share, you share, are we not perspective shifting? I say, wow, you know what? I never thought of it that way, Norma. Oh, wow, oh, cool, you know. And again, too, look, when you shared your comment earlier there about, you know, first and realized, yeah, I mean, you added something to it, and you brought in new understandings, new perspectives, right? Or you re-emphasized the obvious. This is really profound. So sharing is an incredibly magical thing, and sharing by its very nature is not telling. So Ramsey, I just, okay, we'll give you a little bit of a hard time. I'm going to use you as an example here, right? For me, I very much make every effort to avoid this word should, because whenever I say you should, I'm telling you what to do. Now, for me, and I notice this in our psychologists in general, we tend to, the moment somebody tells me something, their intention is good, right? They're trying to be helpful and good, but actually it's not. Why? Because I need to learn it for myself. If I just say, yes, Ramsey, right? I've just adopted whatever you say. I haven't made it my own. I've now taken something into me that's yours. It's not mine, right? In the telling. And that's the nature of telling. It presumes that, or it kind of forces you to take something from somebody else. We don't like doing that. It goes against us, because also the way our learning and awareness works, if you don't make it your own, it's never really real to you, right? It's always somebody else's. But if you said, instead of saying you should always control, if you had maybe phrased it slightly different in a sharing way, you would have said, you could have maybe said that, you know, in my experience, that if we can control the flow of our thoughts and regulate them, and, you know, have them running and be deliberate, this has been beneficial to me. I say, wow, okay, wow, let me think about it. Now I am assessing the value and the merit of what you're saying. And I might say, well, yeah, Ramsey, that makes a lot of sense. I agree. Well, you know, I've experienced the same thing, Ramsey, right? But instead of you now telling me, which means I have to adopt you and control in my life, I am choosing to take what you say as my own, right? So this is sharing. This is the value of sharing. I get to choose to take the value as my own. That choosing is completely, utterly, totally valuable, important, critical. When I'm being told I don't have choice, and now I'm being programmed by you who's telling me. Now, I understand intent is good, but I don't want to be programmed by you. No matter how accurate your program is, no matter how valuable your program is, I'm still being programmed by you, and I don't want to be programmed, even if it's a beneficial program to me, right? I want to adopt that value, that wisdom, that sensibility myself. I am now in control. It's the very point that you're mentioning, right? Yeah, and no problem, Ramsey. I'm just using it as an example. You know, I'm not. This is a do. You know, communication is a haphazard business. It seldom comes out how we want it to come out. So this is a very cool. It's very cool. I mean, your comment has value, right, in the way it came out. So it's very potent to make this point, and on this point of sharing, right? Like I said, sharing has many benefits in and of itself, but also by contrast, it's not telling. And I have a whole program right? Which is it's a coaching program for coaches, right? To be a coach. It's particularly how to learn to be a coach, a life coach specifically, without having any wisdom content. You don't have to have wisdom or content or have no. People think this is what coaching is, telling people what to do. No, sorry, it's not, right? So when we understand the profoundness of sharing, and even more when we understand the profoundness of hearing, capital H hearing, capital L listening, you can be a profound life coach just by hearing people, just by listening, right? And by sharing, asking questions. You don't have to have any wisdom. You can just be there for people. Anyway, in that program, it goes into the detail of one of the core things to remember there that gets repeated over and over is share, don't tell, share, don't tell, share, don't tell. Right? It's recommended that you as a coach, if you want to be a life coach, and you don't even have to be a life coach, you just want to be of benefit to your friends, share, don't tell. That's it. Right. Same thing. I have it probably somewhere. I think in the where the group was set up. To say if you're making posts or comments, share, don't tell. Right. The group is set up to facilitate and foster and encourage sharing, not telling. Telling people think this is what they're supposed to do, and it's like worrying. They think they're supposed to do. It's counterproductive, really. Share and you'll get much better value, and anybody gets value from sharing. But telling, we tend to be a bit resistant to telling. It's the way we set up. It's the nature of awareness, because if you choose it, it becomes awareness. Choice and awareness are quite synonymous, whereas telling is synonymous with programming, and programming is anti-awareness. Everything revolves around awareness. If you understand this, and the whole universe is geared to this, okay, it's a long story. It's one of the core things of Way-of-Impeccability. But when we understand this, we start to work in harmony with sharing. And sharing is a profound term. Again, put it in your dictionary of power. It is a conception. It's a philosophy. It's a huge deal. It's a way of living, a way of being. It's a profoundness that cannot be overemphasized. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. If you just start looking at the world around you from this concept of sharing and telling, you're going to be really astounded, and you're going to start noticing how much telling you get and how much you resist telling. And when you do get sharing, wow, man, this is really cool. I get to choose. I get to choose whether or not I'm going to bring this into my life. I get to choose whether this makes sense or not. And when somebody's sharing self-evident sensibilities, which I really make an effort to do, this is really profound, because, man, oh, that makes sense. That's really cool. It's like, duh, but I'm not being forced to take it into me. I get to choose. And when we do that, we make it our own, and we enjoy it. It becomes special to us because it's ours. And this is important. This is how you get to be a real person, by making it your own. Yeah. Very, very, very big deal. Very big deal. So very cool. So let's end on that one magical note of sharing. And I love that you guys were here. And it's very cool. And I love that you make comments. It's really a big deal to me. It's huge. It's huge. One thing before I go, Norma, thank you. I'm gonna get 2 thumbs up from me, Norma. Thank you for being here, Norma. Thank you for being here. I always appreciate you being here. You too, Ramsey. It's a joy. It's a joy that you're here. It's a very big deal. It's a very, very big deal. All right. We'll continue next week. Now, next week, I do believe the program shifts. Right now, in this program, all right. Sorry, I was going to end, but I do want to make a comment on next week, because I just want to check here, right? No, it's not feeling and believing. It's a very powerful program. But on freedom from anxiety, we had, yes, owning and understanding, owning our understandings and replacements. Yeah. So we're starting to get into more detailed technical things that we can do. We've been really looking at understanding, discerning the complexity, understanding what's really going on. And in this program, I overemphasize understanding, because it's such a deep habit. Anxiety and worry, for most people, it's a lifetime thing. And as a result, they tend to get a bit caught up in it. Yeah. And so it's a big deal. So we're going to start getting into practical stuff from next week on. That's very cool, right? So owning and understanding owning our understandings and replacements, which is exactly what I was talking about, sharing. When you start to share, you take things in yourself and you make it your own and you own it, and this changes you, right? So it's very important, this concept of owning things. So I'm very keen on that for next week. Brilliant, brilliant. All right. See you guys next week. Thank you very much for being here. And anybody who's listening to a replay, thank you for that too. And keep in mind with the replay, make your comments. I will respond to the comments on the replay. Very important. All right. Bye-bye, 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 everybody.